Good morning, my loves. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Please like and subscribe if you find this content helpful. And if you're a returning subscriber, hello. Today, I want to talk about the fear of being seen. This is something that has been huge for me in the past couple weeks. I've been spending the past year working very, very deeply on myself, and the past couple weeks I've started to take that a step outwards. So I'm starting to date again. And what I really struggled with before was this a feeling of sense of worth and how much could I say no, in this battle between giving someone a chance because you don't know them too well, especially that I've been doing a lot of online matches, or even just like a couple of people in person. You know, you may not get a vibe initially, and then do you give them a chance? Or is it just you know already that this person isn't for you? And if you're like me before, I used to get sent spinning when I used to feel this. I used to get really anxious about finding someone who was right for me, something I really, really wanted, but I've always struggled with enmeshment, with boundaries, which is why it's such a dear topic of mine to talk about boundaries and self-power and knowing your limits and your strengths and your values, because it's so important to get in touch with that deeper part of yourself. But what I've found over the past couple of weeks while I've been starting to online date is, firstly, the fears that come up are never to do with the other person. You can say this for sure when you're only a couple dates in, because you barely know this person. So if you're making a lot of judgments, if you're doing a lot of, well, they're not good enough for me kind of things, or you're just projecting a lot of fears onto them and they say something and you kind of think, oh, well, that must mean that they don't share this other value of mine. If you're starting to make jumps, if you're starting to make assessments based on something they haven't really concretely said, then you're probably dealing with a bit of a fear of being seen, because you're trying to control the situation. You're trying to take anything that they are sharing and trying to use it as a means of seeing if they share the deepest values with you. And by all means, listen. You can tell a lot about someone's opinions and values when you listen, but be really wary of if you're taking something that they're saying in passing and you're trying to make everything about, should I run? And you're not reciprocating, because this is what I used to do in dating before. I didn't want to open up, but I expected the other person to open up. And that's just not how things work. That's also not how men work. So you want to make sure that when you're dating, if you want affection, you're the one who is holding the space for affection to come in. And to me, men and women have very different roles, approaches, ways of working. We look for different things in a relationship. So if you're male or female, the way to do this will be very different. Female, if you're the female or the, I say, more feminine essence, then you are the one who is to open this space, who is to kind of transmute some of the logic things that they say and put it back into feeling and connection. And this will be very different if you're on the masculine side. It's more about providing the structure for the woman to open up, so being a bit more direct and open. But that is a whole nother video in terms of dating tips, and the different male and female, again, essences, masculine and feminine energy, yin and yang energy, that really create that polarity in romance. But for now, we are talking about the fear of being seen. And some things that I've found really helpful are, first of all, before you start dating someone, getting clear on like really sticking in on what you're looking for. And this starts with the level of commitment. I don't want you to hide the level of commitment that you are looking for. Stand in the ground. And when I've done this, I haven't even changed anything explicitly on my profile that says I'm looking for XYZ. But maybe I changed a couple of prompts, or maybe it's just how the energetic field works. But I have got a serious higher quality in people who I have matched with, and I absolutely love this. And even if they haven't been looking for the same level that I have, it's the topic of what we're looking for has come up very, very quickly and very directly in like a really nice way. And so by the time that we're having that conversation, it's really early on, so no one's got any attachment. So if we're looking for something else, it's just, oh, okay, we're just not a match on that level, rather than now we're connected, I need you to need the level that I want, you know? So yeah, first one is really own what level of commitment you are looking for, and start peeling away, start saying no to anyone, start being turned off by anyone who is not on that same level that you are. If they are coming across as, yeah, a little bit casual, let's say. I mean, I'm personally dating for very, very long-term commitment, so I am not interested in anyone casual, and these tips are more for that kind of dating. So if you are looking for something casual, that's a very different approach, and not something that I am personally teaching. But that is also a lot easier. I think everyone knows how to get something casual. I think it's quite instinctive. But if you're here, you're probably wondering, how do I get something a bit more long-term? So the other thing I want you to do is go in stages. So if you have a fear of being seen, going from talking to someone on an app to immediately dating someone in person, like seeing them in person, that can be a lot. That can be a big jump for some people. I am very, very introverted naturally, and to show up vulnerably with another person in the room, that physical safety, it has been hard for me to build. So something that I've tried recently and has been absolutely amazing, and I found to my surprise that the guys have really liked it as well, is FaceTiming before having a date. So if you're chatting a bit and they mention a date, just ask, can we share a FaceTime before we meet in person? And as I say, I've never had a bad reception to this. And the FaceTime doesn't have to be long. It could be about half an hour where you just have an initial quick chat. And the nice thing about, so I'd say maybe chat for a couple days and then try and FaceTime, so that you don't have, I also don't text full on for the first couple days, because I want to try and have those warm-up topics, that small talk in person, so I can get a gauge and we can both feel that awkwardness out. Like, that awkwardness is so powerful between you guys if you can hold a little bit of silence. And I've learned from experience, a lot of guys will pre-plan a couple of things to ask, and it's much easier for a guy to ask questions, to lead the conversation when you haven't really been texting much. There's just every topic that he can explore. And I've found that for women, if you can just patiently wait until they can find the next topic, so they might feel a bit awkward, but that's not on you, that's not a reflection on your self-worth or anything. It gives them a chance to pick up a bit more courage for masculine leadership. They absolutely love it, because when you respond positively, when you appreciate it, when you receive what they say next with a smile, when you can see that they are feeling a bit nervous and you're sat there patiently waiting still with a loving and open heart, they love that they've been able to it's not slipping, but in their eyes, you know, if they're feeling a bit awkward, they're kind of thinking, oh no, is she gonna see that and think I'm not confident? But if you can just hold that space, and then he comes back and he repairs that moment, that's going to give him a lot more confidence in future. And it's really powerful because as a woman, you're then not going into control. If you start stepping into control and leading the conversation and saving him, he is subconsciously or consciously going to start to feel really overpowered, and you're going to lose your polarity. You're going to lose that romance, that connection. And you don't want to do this at any stage, but you definitely don't want to do this when you first meet. So yeah, that has been huge for me. FaceTime and holding those little pauses creates a lot of magnetism, and it's hard if you are someone who is typically quite shy, but if you can just, honestly, it's the easier option. Like, you don't have to find a topic if you're the feminine pole, that is. And I'm not saying these are gender specific either. It's just if you've got more of a feminine essence or a masculine essence in the relationship that you are wanting and desiring. So what else have I learnt over the past couple weeks? Yes, so I've actually found, this might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I do somewhat like texting, but you have to see texting and viewing people in person as two very different things. So you build your relationship when you're in person, and you can do a little bit of that. It's easier to ask some deeper questions up front when it's over text because it's not so confrontational, but you don't want to do that all over text because you want to be able to pick up on their subtle cues for things that you really care about. And for me, I don't ask personal deep questions over text, but I love it when a guy asks. And I won't always ask in depth because then I can ask my questions, bring up the topic of conversation again, and just have that in person. So I definitely see there is a purpose in texting in modern dating. And what I've found is, take the dating, the in-person dating, as that is your relationship building. And for women, we need a lot of physical safety. So spending time in their presence and just building that, really feeling physically safe with them, is incredibly important. So the relationship to me doesn't really start until you are in person with each other. Texting has a really great role in reflecting back triggers. So I want you to see texting as a way to grow, a way to see where your pitfalls are, where your judgments are, where your projections are, that you are putting into the dating field. So it's not actually about the other person, but these are the same fears that are coming up each time. If you've been dating for a while, or you date a different guy and you just find the same fears coming up and you just think that you're attracting the same guys, it could be a projection, a filter that you are putting onto them, and they may actually be presenting that attribute that you don't like, but you're not going to get past that pattern until you heal it. So texting is great for this because you can't actually tell the subtle cues, you can't tell the context, and that's why a lot of people say don't do it, it's a problem, because you can't really understand. But for me, because it's not clear, that's really good for me to see that where I'm putting my projections in, where I'm filling the gaps. So I want you to be really careful and conscious when you text. And again, this is great because you have more time, and especially if you are a woman in dating, make sure that you do keep that distance. You're not replying really, really quickly all the time, really intensely. You want to match his effort, but you also want to leave a bit more space for him to ask more. Like, the masculine needs to feel as though he is pursuing you, and a feminine woman wants to feel as though she is being pursued, but she has to hold that loving space. She can't just expect it all, kind of thing, because that's going to be a turn off energy for a man. He's just going to feel like he's being used. So it has to be consciously done from the feminine side. And I can talk about those roles in a different video if you're interested. But in terms of texting, so when you guys, I like to lead less. When I text, I don't like to talk as much about what do you do, like those topics. I more like to turn the conversation into more like love and affection. And it's important for me to feel that. So I want to make sure that a guy is reciprocal of that. But also what I found with that is guys absolutely love it, because I think a lot of women are quite direct and brash. And in dating nowadays, and it's really refreshing for a man to just, like, I get so many comments on, oh, you're so lovely, and just all these things, and I get a lot of affection back, and it's because I'm putting in a conscious effort to try and connect with this person, not just judge them on what they do. And I do find that important too, but I'm not using that as an upfront screener. I want to see if I have an emotional connection with this person first. Can we build something together? And then let's see if we are a good match. And like, you want to do both in terms of a long-term dating, but first few days of texting or matching, you just want to see if you can get a nice, light-hearted, affectionate vibe going. So when you start to do that, and you can do it slowly, so you can take your time replying, I want you to notice what's coming up for you, all the fears. And instead of replying straight away, I want you to go away and meditate or journal or go for a walk and just really unpack, or just let that fear surface, like explore it, see what it is. And most of the time, especially when you match with someone for the first couple days, it's not going to be about them, and you're going to be able to reply to their texts a lot more consciously and a lot more lovingly. So if you can't respond lovingly, is there something in you that is blocking that? Do you think you're not worthy of it? Or is that not something you're looking for? Or I found that there's going to be a lot of fears that come up. And I've certainly had this, where a lot of times it has been just something that I've misconstrued. Really recently, I was having an off day. We've been chatting, I think, for a couple weeks, maybe had a date about a week ago. I can't really remember, but it's new, but we get on really well. We connect really well. And I was having an off day. I just completely needed space. And that wasn't really our vibe up until then. We were quite open and vulnerable with each other. And so at some point, I just said, essentially, like, I need a little bit of space. And the way he replied was a little bit more short. I think because it was the first time that I'd been maybe withdrew a bit, and that was a big thing for him. And I read his message and like his more short messages as he's now getting angry that I need some space. And the judgment I made was, maybe he's not emotionally stable enough to handle the work and the career that I do. So we didn't speak for the rest of that day. Usually he messages me every morning. He didn't message me the next morning, and I was like, okay, well, definitely now I've upset him, I've hurt him, and he's not talking to me, and I don't want someone that's just gonna ditch. So I mention it to my mum, and my mum's like, oh, you should just message him. And I'm like, no, I'm not messaging him first. Like, he should be able to handle his own emotions and then come back to me. And then by the end of the evening, like, I took my own advice. I did a lot of journaling. I unpacked a lot. I was really looking at what I was saying about him. And then I realized, hang on, I'm saying that he is not emotionally capable of looking after me, not emotionally stable, that kind of thing. And basically what was happening is I was freaking out that we were getting on so well from the affection side. And so I withdrew, as I needed it, but maybe there was some self-sabotage in there as well. And the second that I did that, I jumped on the opportunity to say, he can't handle me. I'm too much for him. And I kind of started to realize, hang on, I'm saying this guy is emotionally unstable. That's really unfair. So far we've been good. Just because he's affectionate and you're not used to that doesn't mean he's emotionally unstable. And I realized basically it was a judgment I was making about myself. I was worried that I was too emotionally unstable, despite all the inner work that I have done over the past 15 years, the depths I've gone to in the past 15 months, the faith that I've created, and I was still like, I'm not emotionally stable enough for a relationship. And I was 100% projecting that onto him. And I didn't have that much clarity, but by the end of that day, yeah, I went from halfway through the day going, no, mum, I am definitely not messaging him. That is just not my place. That's not what I want. And this thread had been working really well for me up until then, you know, like just give him space, like he's gonna come. So I was like, I'm just gonna trust that. And then by the end of the evening, yeah, I started to feel, maybe I'm a little bit in my head. And I messaged him and I was like, did I offend you? And he was like, no, not at all. I was just giving you space. And so we ended up FaceTiming and he was like, yeah, I was surprised by your message because I was giving you space. Like I was waiting on you. And I was like, oh, I was waiting on you because I thought you just message in the morning. And like he sent me a good night message the night before and I thought it was a little bit short. But again, that was me reading into it. So by all means, like these, trust what's worked before, but you really have to tone into how much have you built since then? How much more do you know since then? Like, are you making a really rash decision so that you can just cut him off and go, no, you know what? He's not good enough for me, which is actually just a self-reflection on you not feeling good enough, so that you can just cut it off immediately. And we don't know these things. We can't grow through these things if we stay stuck behind the fear of being seen. We have to throw ourselves out there. We have to be willing to be a bit vulnerable, try different things, and even try the opposite of the things that have been working up until then. And I don't mean just jump ship to the extreme, but just try. You know, like me sending that message to him first was new, but in that moment, that's exactly what we needed. Otherwise, more time would have gone by. And say if he then messaged me in the end in 3 or 4 days' time, by that time so many mental stories would have gone in my head, like, no, he like, not only is he not done, not only is he not able to handle my emotions, but he's also taken ages to reply, and I don't want someone who's taking that long. Or just relax. So we're gonna be okay. It's all a learning curve. You've got this. The most important thing is that you are really tuning into what you want and how you feel, and do take that time to try and process whether you are checking out projections like I am. And a part of me was thinking, well, I usually attract guys who aren't so mentally, or actually no, I'm basing that, see, I'm bringing up my own limiting beliefs now. I'm basing that on one guy that I dated many years ago, like the first guy I dated, and he wasn't so emotionally stable. And then from there, I felt like every guy wasn't, if they were passing affection to me. So then I started seeing guys that were a bit colder, and I was showing up in a very masculine way. I wasn't, they were probably perfectly fine. Like they probably weren't emotionally unstable or cold whatsoever. I just wasn't the person for them. I wasn't the one that was opening that up. I didn't know those skills. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have much safety in my body. But these past 15 months have been game changers. And I've learned so much, and I realized that that's a responsibility that sits on the feminine side. We have to hold the emotional, affectionate space. The men hold the physical safety space. Like they provide the structure for us to open up. And it's both of us are working. We're just coming from two different viewpoints. I don't believe in 50-50. I don't believe in let's half ourselves and put it in, you half yourself and put it into a relationship. I believe in let's be very different people, let's be compatible, and let's have, I don't believe in 50-50, I believe in 100-100, okay? I want a diverse team, you know? I want to cover different bases so that we can flourish, we don't tread on each other's toes, and we have good communication. And that's how we gel. We don't do it because we've set rules and you do this and you do that, and I now can't ask for help because that violates the rules that we put in, you know? It's much more, your relationship's gonna have a lot more longevity if you do it on energy rather than strict rules of I do this action, you do that action, I hold this, you hold this, you know? So you just got to get really clear about that too. If this has been helpful, please let me know. Drop any comments that you'd like, any questions in the description box, and I will get back to them, or more likely I will probably make another video on them. I do read all the comments. I love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for your support so far as well. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you, my loves.